Hey, you. Welcome to the What Reading Book Podcast, the no boring zone where we get you all excited about books that are worth reading.
On the What Reading Podcast, you get some unbiased take on books, juicy scoops of what runs through the minds of your favorite author. You can call us your virtual book connoisseurs that help you filter through the many books out there and let you know the ones worth reading.
On this podcast, we talk about different book genre. We do not discriminate. From fiction to non-fiction, poetry, biographies, memoirs, you name it, so long as it is written by an author of African descent and project our very own authentic African stories. You can count us in. So welcome on board and thank you for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed the show. Hi guys! Welcome to the Worth Reading Podcast. My name is Toby Enyade and with me is my favorite bookaholic friend, Sheyi Adebi, Mr. Akono, aka I don't know.
My name is not Akono. My name is Akono. My name is Akono.
As far as I'm concerned.
So, hello everyone. My name is Shea Adebi. Shea Akono makes it easy. Some call it as a nickname, Shea Kano. Either one works for me. And it's good to be here with you, Toby, as we, as we go through, this first book and, first of many. So, excited.
Yeah.
One or two palpitations, but I'm sure we'll get through it.
Yes, it's the first and it's not supposed to be perfect, So I'm all for progress over perfection and I am totally open to learning through this and, making all of the mistakes and, getting better over time. I hope you guys, make quite a number of excuses for us as we, start this journey. And hope it turns out to be a super exciting one for you, our listeners, too. Guess what our first book is, guys? It's the book of the moment. Yee! I wish there was someone that could clap or jump the drums for us.
Drum roll. Drum roll.
Okay, guys, without beating around the bush, it is Damilare Kuku's Nearly All the Men in Lagos Are Mad. If you're in Lagos or you're in Nigeria and you've not heard about this book, you're probably living under what?
Under a rock.
Or you're probably sleeping on a bicycle. Sheyi, tell me, why did we choose to go with this book as our first book on the Worth Reading Podcast?
Well, I think each of us has different reasons for choosing the book. For me, what always piqued my curiosity, or what always piques my curiosity about a book, is it's either I want to learn from it, or I want to be entertained by it, or I just want to pass time with it. So for Nearly All the Men in Lagos Are Mad, I'm a man. I grew up in Lagos at some point in time in my life. And I needed to understand why someone would sort of just throw a jab at we Lagos boys, I've been out of Lagos for a couple of years and I still proudly, call myself a Lagos boy because many of the things I learned about life and all of what was in Lagos. So when I saw that book, I was like, okay, I'm not mad, right? My guy friends in Lagos are not mad. So I need to know who the madmen are. And that's why I said, okay.
What still fascinates me the most about men is how they always obey that bro code. Like, an average man is just so fiercely loyal to his bro. And I really hope and pray that there's something that we women begin to learn from. And be quite annoying sometimes though, but interesting thing. It's interesting why you got so, in quotes, defensive and curious at the same time to want to know who is this author that has chosen to, throw a jab at us. But it's a different reason for me. Okay. It's all semantics, if you ask me. For me, yeah, I think it's the title of the book. Because, I mean, like you rightly said, nearly all the men in Lagos are mad. It just catches your attention immediately and you're wondering like, whoa, Kiloshe, what has actually happened? And I feel it's also a very bold feminist statement, if we're being honest. And it almost feels like I got the vibe from reading the blog that it's like a testament or a bunch of testimonial of what women have suffered or experienced in the hands of men. And so it kind of gives this, how do I put it now? Gender war vibe. Like a woman is like, yeah, someone is speaking for us, and the men are like, how can you say such about us? And all. So, yeah.
Of course, we have to defend ourselves now.
And it's quite, what's the word now? Controversial as well, and makes for like a very topical conversation. So why not? And I also feel even for people who are not such bookaholics or bibliophile must have read this book. And so it just makes sense that we choose to talk about it on the Worth Reading podcast. So let's get right into it. So Sheyi, we're starting with you first. Tell me what part of the book actually intrigues you the most, like the themes, and what makes this book come off as like a spectacular read. But before we get into that, I think it's worthwhile for us to talk about the author, who is Damilare Kuku. She's a new kid on the block in the literary scene in Nigeria, of course. And she's sort of like taking it by storm, if I just say so myself. So what do you know about Damilare Kuku?
Well, not so much. I think it's largely bits and pieces that I've tried to tie together online. But I know that, to be honest, everyone that we regard as a writer of repute did not start to write from their first book. So Damilare Kuku must have been writing in the backwaters until I know that she had one or two stints with acting here and there. But in terms of knowing Damilare as a writer, I think this book is my first encounter with Damilare. And indeed, it's an encounter that will always make me remember the name, Damilare Kuku, first of a kind. And, the titles that they give people, Game of Thrones style. First of a name, writer of books.
Yeah, reminds me of Oriki in Lubi Ajayi's, what's the title of that book again? The Firefighter Manual. Yeah, she spoke about, how Oriki and, all these things help in making you very self-aware. That's like, by the way, anyway. So, how did I know Damilare Kuku? I've never known her to be an author anyways. I think seen her make a couple of appearances in, sitcoms and, television series. I think, interestingly, the one that strikes a chord the most has to be her appearance in Castle and Castle on Netflix. She interestingly played the character of a rape victim, and she kind of like embodied that role so much. So I'm not surprised at all that she also touched around, sexual abuse and
I never really watched Castle and Castle, so
okay.
Sadly, for whatever reason, I hear it's a good one. So maybe sometime soon I'll get to watch it, but never really got to watch it. But I hear it's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you were asking what really intrigued me about the book. I think that from all that Damilare wrote about in this book, the book is a very it's almost like a manual for any young person getting into the dating scene in Lagos or perhaps in Nigeria. I find it quite
in your heart.
not just fear actually. I must say that the book is should be rated 18 and above, because it's quite a very vivid book. And I would leave it at that. A curious mind that is above 18 can go find out what's in there. But I think that the story
sorry to cut in, Shaggy. Without a doubt, if you are not 18, what on earth are you doing dating Lagos men? Because it seems like the men in Lagos or in Nigeria are sort of like a special breed. And so if you're not ready to serve breakfast,
I think that boys become men, right? So, and if I remember correctly, people get into high institutions before they are 18. So, if she says nearly all the men in Lagos are mad, what are the chances that they didn't start becoming mad from when they were boys? At least I know that some of the stories that she wrote about started out from even teenage years of some of the subjects. So, but I think that the one that two stories actually, and it was more towards the end that some of the stories sort of just hit me. I liked there were a couple of them at the beginning. So I Knew You, and one of the reasons why I Knew You sort of struck me is because it sort of gives a picture to the complexities of love and life, right?
She is about to move some love doctor vibes on us.
Yeah. So it gives you a picture of the complexities of love and life, wherein these guys had some sort of sanity in their love, right?
Yeah.
These guys had experienced the spontaneity of love. They felt that raw rush of emotions from their first encounter, where the guy had to rearrange the song structure with his band, for instance, because he wanted to sing to catch our attention, and then all of what happened afterwards, where they had where they sort of made out just behind the venue. And I like the fact that Damilare also used locations like a picture. I know that Jazz Hall, was a very popular OJ's rather was a very popular location in Lagos. Yeah. And then the story grew into how as partners, right? They grew on, and they got better. Their family grew larger. And they sort of experienced some level of growth, both in terms of economic, obvious economic growth, as well as whatever romantic growth that they may experience. But one thing that was still a problem was the fact that all of that wasn't defined under a legal definition. They weren't married, right?
That guy is not right. Yes, I'm even angry that you are trying to waste all this grammar to, in quotes, paint a very sweet and beautiful picture of what their relationship is. That relationship is like a very horrible one. It seemed like something that was actually built on like the wrong foundation in the first place, and all. And it's almost like from a guy's perspective, you're trying to rationalize it and say, "Oh, sometimes love or like is not rational."
I'm not trying to rationalize it. I think that where I was trying to drive at is two things. The guy was selfish.
Of course, right? Absolutely. I'm so glad that, say that again, Sheyi, please. Say it again. So, it's like
without a doubt, the guy was selfish.
For once, is it?
I think that, so what I learned from it is not necessarily, because from what we could tell, it wasn't a case of, unfaithfulness or whatever in the story, but it was largely a case of
trauma from childhood, and he has issues with commitments.
Exactly. It wasn't legally defined. And, one of the things that many of us fall victims to is how we carry the experiences of our past and try to use it to shape, our future. So if, for instance, it's an economic experience, maybe that's what then guides us into how or where we want to work, how we save, and all of that, because we do not want the events of the past to catch up with us. If it's a romantic or relationship experience, maybe okay, you saw firsthand what the relationship with your father and mother was, you sort of now use that to either run against it or live in line with it. So I think that he also have gotten to a point where he outgrew those experiences, and he also have seen himself through the eyes of his partner and seen that there was a much greater need, and you could not have kept someone for so long, made babies with her over a period, have a family, friends, and all of that come by, and then the moment she keeps asking you when you want to marry her, you run away or you walk away. That was very selfish. But I found that story very, very intriguing. How it's possible to have all of what you think you want to have, but one thing that ought to define the entire experience is missing, and then everything comes crashing like a pack of cards.
Interesting take. This whole thing sort of like reminds me of the peculiarities of the society that I find myself right now. So I don't know if I mentioned she is currently based in Abuja, Nigeria. I am here in the UK, and in the European society, like commitment is like a loose term. If that kind of like explains it. So I'll cite an example. So sometime when I was doing my MBA program, there's one of my flatmates that really used to talk about his girlfriend, his Greek. And, I could see that these guys were madly in love with each other and all of that. And then we're all just talking about our postmasters plans and all of that. And I'm like, dude, how far? Like, so, I mean, are you guys getting married anytime soon? And literally everybody in the room just looked at me like, what am I talking about? I need to have that look on his face, because I think it's a Nigerian thing or an African thing that we believe that, when, you've gotten to know someone to a particular level, then the next thing, or it's a no-brainer for marriage to set in. And I also feel that the goal or the purpose of a relationship was not clearly stated from the onset. It would have helped if it was clearly defined from day one, and the girl.
What do you call clearly defining a relationship?
We women assume so many things. We assume so many things. From the get-go,
there's some sort of contract that says, dude, milady, this relationship is headed for marriage.
No.
Are you ready to stay in or get out?
You're making it sound so mechanical, Shay. And that's not what I'm expecting. I'm more or less a case of, there are some people that are commitment averse, and there are some playboys that will come to you and they'll just tell you, now cruise, like we're not getting any serious and all of that. Now you take what you can. If you're not happy with it, you vamoose. But again, I guess when emotions set in, there's a tendency for women mostly to just assume a lot of things and be they kind of like find it hard to have certain conversation. There's absolutely nothing wrong with the lady actually stating from the onset that, okay, so these are the things that I expect, and not just assume or allow, emotions and sentiment cloud our judgment. But again, these things are easier said than done, because when the chips are down and you're face to face with the real thing, all this philosophy or this good talk that I'm having will just fly off your head when, love to shock you and everything. But that's a very interesting story though. And it kind of like hurts. When the story started, I felt like, for once, some good vibes, some good story that is not going to end in like a doomsday, but
that would end in tears, right?
Yeah, like premium tears
but
like that. And I was still feeling like, see love, oh God, when? Behold, the breakfast. Well, not breakfast.
Yeah, like Burna Boy said, last. Like Burna Boy said, last.
You forget it. Breakfast, everybody go chop breakfast, the national cake. anyways, interesting one. So now I think it's my own time to talk about like my favorite, most interesting story, or what I think stood out for me in the book. Like you rightly mentioned, it's the book gave
Hold on,
me
before
this.
you talk about your story, I want to cue in something that you talked about. Just listen.
Yeah. Oh shit!
So
I
those
know
are the
you're a
words
huge
of
Burna Boy fan.
Bonner.
It's just a
Listen,
no-brainer
you
that
can
you would
listen
pay
again.
homage to him. Oh shit!
Okay, go ahead, please.
Oh, okay. So for me, it was just this sense of hopelessness that overwhelmed me in court after reading the book, and it kind of like, whether we like it or not, every book you read would have some kind of effect on you, or would always leave this aftertaste. And for me, it was just like, God, are there still good men out there? Because the kind of horrible stories of men that Kuku painted in this book would just get you wondering, like, God, oh, please don't let my path cross with this kind of people and all of that. I read Beard Gang and I'm like, ooh.
Oh God. that stuff actually
was epic. Money, wow. And whether you like it or not, even though it's fiction, right? It's actually a brutal reflection of our reality. There's actually like an element of truth in it. Because there was this part in the acknowledgement, Damilare Kuku was talking about how, many of the stories were inspired by the narration of so many women, what she's been told by women, friends, and even maybe it was something you read in blogs and all of that. And it's just so disturbing that, some women actually fall victim of, men that she called like the beard gang. I don't know if it's going to be spoiler alert to begin to go into the details of that particular story, but beard gang just, sent, shivers down my spine, and I'm like, oh my goodness, this is doom. And also women just, treat marriage or relationship or love as very transactional and reduce it to,
actually,
move on swiftly is actually a very incredible thing in court.
But interestingly, I hear that there's a lot of that goes on in Nigeria, right? So I know that those stories, though quite fictional, are very reflective. So Beard Gang, I don't know why Toby is afraid to spoil or share the spoils of that chapter.
Well, read the book. That's the essence.
Okay, can't read the book, but Beard Gang would interest you. Really.
There's a cohort of men in Lagos. Let me just give you a summary. There's a cohort of men in Lagos, or Nigeria as a whole, anyways, that are actually, should I say, bisexual and gay, and because they want to fit into the idea that the African Society projects, still go ahead to get married, and then eventually begin to disclose their sexuality to their partners, their wives, and still want to hit their cake and have it. And so in such situations, because these men are actually wealthy, they're powerful, they're influential, and an average woman is sort of like, excited or happy when she's with a powerful man. The women are torn between just, making do with all of the fringe benefits that comes along with the marriage or working out. And so, there's this woman this happened to, and she became like the Mama Saleh, if you know what that means, of other women that fell a victim of such men and began to provide some agony and see in quote remedy for such women whenever they eventually find out about what has what has come over them and the peculiarities of their marriage and situation. Yeah, so it's quite disturbing. There's so much more to that story, but I won't want to give more away. I would totally advise that you grab a copy and read. We are running against time. I think it's time to talk about what other people have been saying about Damilare Kuku's Nearly All the Men in Lagos Are Mad. Interestingly, for a debut on Goodreads, it rates 4-star out of 5, which is a good thing. So that's like a major, I think we could clap for Damilare.
I think she did. I think the reviews are very good. Even before you, go into the reviews, one story I think everyone should look out for is Sidelined. So one of the reasons why I enjoyed reading this book is, well, apart from the 18+ part of it, is the fact that she touched on a lot of themes that are pretty much obvious in our society. A lot of them we've sort of become used to or blindsided to, right? And Sidelined is something that I know happened even till today. So you want to know what happened on Sidelined? There wouldn't be spoilers. Go read the book. So yeah, Toby, you were saying something about the reviews.
Yeah, I was saying that the book actually got 4 out of 5 star on Goodreads, and then a lot of people have taken time, their liberty to write their thoughts about it, and it's been all around great stuff, except that there's a particular corn that, resonates across board, which is the fact that, it's pretty very, graphic with its, sexual, through the sexual path of the book, like she really dived into details. And in fact, this book, I don't advise anybody that is trying to practice abstinence or you're just trying to guard your heart and if you're not self-disciplined, to actually read this book. Almost 10 out of the 12 story had, something sensual about them, and they were not just, it's not for the faint-hearted anyway, so yeah.
No,
I don't know if she has anything else to say on that.
No, not really. I think even before reading reviews, I've tried to catch up on, just what a lot of people, in terms of just the hashtag generally, and I've seen friends, put up the book on their socials, on Twitter, on Instagram, saying, "Oh, you need to read this book. You need to read this book." So, I think generally there is some sort of wide acceptance that this book was not a miss. This book was sort of a hit. Although I think a lot of the stories will resonate.
Yeah.
There are a lot of stories, how about the anointed wife, for instance, right?
I could almost draw the picture of it sounded like the anointed wife was somewhat like a satire to me, and
exactly.
If you read the story from start to finish, you can almost identify someone in real life that they actually allude to, but let's just leave that for your imagination to figure out.
Exactly.
Next up, we will be talking about where everyone can get, if you're interested in, reading this book, where you can get it from. You could check out any reputable bookstore around you where good books are sold. Of course, Roving Heights. Check out the
you guys should look out for the book at Roving Heights in Abuja.
Yeah, they're playing in Abuja, Lagos,
Landmark
and
store.
Anywhere you are. Yeah, at VI, Roving Heights Landmark, and Surulere, you can always grab a copy from there. And if you're not in any of those places, order from the what's the name, from the website, or just slide into Roving Heights DM across all socials. For those outside of Nigeria, you can always order on Amazon. And I was so excited when I was doing my research and found out that this book is also available on W.H. Smith, Waterstone, Waterstone. I also saw it on Barnes and Noble. I don't know if, some international publisher already got the right to it, but that's like exciting and great news. There are a few indie bookstores in the UK that I also saw that actually have copies in stock. So Sheyi, on a scale of 1 to 10, how worthy is Nearly All the Men in Lagos Are Mad?
So I'm going to talk like, I'm going to talk like a Nigerian, academic. If you know what that means. That means that I keep.
You're reminding me of those my lit 101 lecturers, Abi. Oh yeah.
Yeah, so I keep one or two marks for myself.
Okay.
But without that, the book is easily an 8. 8 because I've kept at least 2 marks for myself. One of the 2 marks is because Damilare. One can even read the book on a Sunday, but it was a good book. I think it was a very good use of language. It was also very descriptive. So in terms of just being a good descriptive writer, I could literally see myself in some of these places. And and that's what makes a great writer. So yeah, I think it's a little about 10. I'll keep the 2 marks.
Okay, for me it's a 7. 7 because I still stumbled on a few typos and grammatical.
Oh yeah, I saw that, but I just
very few of them. Yeah, I was.
I think that goes for the editor, not so much on the writer.
That, and then I also love the use of a second person POV, point of view. I think it's actually rare for you to see authors pull that off like smoothly, but in most of the story that was really used, and it turned out to be a major plus. I'll definitely recommend this book for anyone who wants a feel-good book and you just want to chill, relax, and want something that you can finish in like one sitting, because the stories actually will keep you turning the pages, and even the opening paragraph self alone is the killer.
Oh yeah.
Like perhaps it's gonna be worthwhile to read that out. It's like one night you will calmly put a knife to your husband's penis and promise to cut it off. Who starts a book with that kind of sentence? So another book that did that for me in recent time was Ivonoje's Bamboozled by Jesus. Imagine Ivonoje starting off a book like that when they gave birth to her, she was holding her mom's IUCD, in her hands, and all. You're like, okay, I'm in for a ride here. It's really very exciting when, the opening sentence for any book you're reading at all is a banger. So guys, that's about it from us on the first episode of the Worth Reading podcast. I hope you've enjoyed every minute of listening to this. Thank you so much for sticking with us to the end. And we're totally looking forward to, reviewing our next book and sharing our thoughts with you. Do well to, leave us a comment, your feedback. If you've read this book, let us know what your thoughts are. You can tweet at us or send us a message via email or on our Instagram page. Shay, any final words for our listeners?
The book is worth reading, so go read it. But don't take it to church. Thank you.
I don't read it on a Sunday or else. You would just, in fact, I don't want to use the term that what I have in mind, but let's just leave it at that.
I know. So just to be clear, and just to end on this note, when I say it's quite graphic, it's not because there are no other books that are even more detailed than this in terms of how she describes most of the sexual encounters. It's rather because it's very, very rare to find a Nigerian writer that will go that length to describe a couple of these things.
Sort of like a conservative society.
So I have to say that this so that one doesn't sound hypocritical, right? I think that's why we're just trying to attune our listeners to this. So it's a good read. Just prepare your mind for whatever you find in it. So thanks, Toby.
All right,
thanks, guys. You'll get the book.
Catch you next time. Yeah.